Hey everybody, Kevin here from HumboldtCraftworks. Welcome back to another episode of Woodworking with Mr. Kevin. That's me. In today's episode, you're gonna watch me build a bunch of cherry dental eggs. And everybody just shut off right now, I know. It's gonna be boring. This is not really about making dental eggs. It's more about making parts that you've never made before and trying to figure out how you're actually gonna make the damn thing. Because your client asks you, and what are you gonna say, no?
No, I'm not going to do that. Think of something else.
What?
So that wouldn't be very good now, would it? So we do our best as woodworkers to try to figure things out, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that I took to figure out how to make silly little dental egg moldings. So if any of you are wondering what happened to part 3 of Charlotte's Tables and Chairs, it's still in my computer. I was sicker than I thought, I guess, when I was filming that. And I spent hours and hours and days rambling, and I'm trying to make heads or tails out of the whole thing and make it not boring. We're gonna get to that shortly, but I figured I might as well make this one because this is what I'm doing now, and usually I film what I'm doing now, so. All right, so here we go. So I'm gonna walk you through all the steps in my thought process through this whole thing because I've actually never made dental eggs before in my life. Here's the larger one, which is the crown, which I'm gonna show you down here. And the smaller one, my neighbor's dog says, looks like this. You can't call the hardware store and say, hey, make me up some dental egg and dart molding that's a 60-inch radius and send it right over to me. So as woodworkers, we have to figure things out for ourselves. I'm gonna walk you through how I went about trying to figure out all of this. I'm gonna slide this back here, see if you guys can see. So in front of me right here are all the egg moldings that I made. The small ones in the front go to the countertop, which is the lower section. The ones up here on the upper section with an 1.5 inch bullnose above them. And the biggest thing for making parts, if you got to make a lot of parts, is you want them to be consistently the same. And I'm going to walk you through how I figured all that out right now. Okay, so we start with either a picture, a drawing, or we take a picture of a piece of furniture that's there, because if somebody else built it, you can build it. You just have to figure out how. And for me, what happened is I took a picture of their dresser, and so I took a picture of the damn thing, and I took it home with me, and I've tried to figure it out from there. I took the measurements and all that. So everything will be kind of relatively similar. And I'm gonna put a picture of it right here. And you can see that dresser is very fancy and it looks like it was carved and took years to build. And if you were to see the whole thing, you'd be like, there's no way you can duplicate that. Next thing you gotta do is figure out what tools you're gonna need to actually build it. What would you use if you had every tool in the world? What would you use to build that part? And then you got to go out in your shop and look around and see what tools you actually have. The more tools you have, the better off you're going to be for making strange and weird parts. If you find that you don't have the tools you need, call around and see if anybody that you know has the tool you need or can do it for you. I've actually done this myself. I actually had a friend of mine make me this curved floor molding part right here because I didn't have a lathe to do it or the skill to do it. And I hired Mr. B to make me about 40 of these things. I made the jig to cut them into 45s and 90s, and there's a video over here about making jigs and how I made the jig to cut these down. So sometimes just call a friend and see if they'll help you out. And then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go out and experiment and try it and see what you like, see if it's easy, see if it's safe to do. Some things aren't safe. And when I first started spinning these around, I made one, which is right here, which is, I don't know how I made this one. It looks like a horse hoof. I'll take a picture of it and put it up on the screen over here. I still don't know how I made this. I did this on the JSM router table by spinning a hunk of wood around after I rounded over these corners here, and then I rounded this over, and it's hard to explain because I think I did it once. I'm like, no way am I gonna do that because it's freaking dangerous. And it would take forever. I went from that to this, and this is the final. So I went through quite a few little steps. My client's dresser over here has gold on it. So they wanted me to paint these gold. And so I had to go buy gold paint, and then I had to patina them to make them look like what was on their dresser. And after putting them all together and sending them a photograph, they're like, no, we don't like that. So much for that. The smaller parts, I had to go through a couple times. It has a little square bottom on there. I'll put a picture of it up over here so you can see it. It's a little square. The original ones I started out with were pointy. They were pointy like this. So I practiced and experimented quite a few times. So experiment and practice, make sure you're doing it safe. I always stand in front of my tools and run it through my head how I'm gonna build everything, try to get the sequence right, make sure I'm not missing a step. With these parts here, I actually had to round all the parts over, sand everything smooth, shape them on the multi-router, and then sand them again, because that was my final sand. And after that, there was no sanding the little part, unless you want to try to sand something this small. For me, I realized after making a couple of them that I better completely finish sand this entire thing here and make them all look as similar as possible, because that's the time to do it when they're on a blank like this, and you can just sand the end and, you know, sand all the parts where you can see everything. And while you're experimenting, you're also thinking, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? Oh, this will help, because one of the things you want to know is how many parts can you make at one time? So I knew the size I wanted from the drawing, right? This is how I made the part. This part isn't as thick as this, and you can see that line right there. Well, I made it so I can make 2 parts per end, so I can cut 4 parts at a time. So these eggs have the same round over as each other on the sides. The only difference is this front 3/4 inch radius, I had to pull back a little bit in the router base itself to make it square. And that took me probably a couple hours to figure out after I was screwing with the thing. All right, so here's the multi-router. If you don't know what a multi-router is, it is basically like a 3-dimensional router, which goes in and out. The X goes side to side for the Y, and the Z goes up and down. So you can do all sorts of craziness with this thing. This one actually has 2 different types of clamps. This is a pneumatic clamp. So when you turn it on, it'll actually clamp things into place, lock it in place like this. So you don't have to hold on to anything. This is what I used before I had a domino machine, because I mainly made doors with this because it was so easy to do. But now I have a domino machine and I don't use this as much, but I still keep it all wrapped up and bundled up in a nice moving blanket, keep it oiled and beautiful and take good care of it. This is actually a friend of mine's father's who passed away a while ago. Thank you, Scott, for letting me use this baby right here. Let me use this years ago for a job, and it's been here ever since. This is the only thing that doesn't have a name in my shop. We'll call it Eli. Good old Eli right here. Oh, plus it also does this. You can loosen this up, and this will actually tilt also as well. So you can make 45-degree mortise and tendons. You can do all sorts of craziness. And I was actually thinking about doing something strange with this to try to make these. The only thing I could figure out is to put this on here flat, clamp it in place, and then use this and this together. And see if I can kind of show it, and run one around the other while I'm doing this. And that's basically how I built all of these little pieces. So when I was running through my head all the scenarios and what I needed to make all these parts, this was one of the main characters in my plot. Without this multi-router, I would have never been able to make these parts safely. So I could have made these on the Jessam router table by putting them down with this 3/4 inch round over bit and spinning them around like this, which I did once, which was stupid because it was dangerous, and one of them got sucked in, whoop! And when it's spinning at 15,000 RPMs, it's not a good thing. To make these, there was, let's count the steps, shall we? To mill them was 1, round over 2, shape them 3, sand them 4. It's the only time you can make them all look the same and good. You can check them all like this. The 5th thing we did is rip them on the bandsaw here using the stops, and we'll go over that in a minute. And then the 6th thing we did was chop them on the chop saw, 2 sides with a stop block on there. And the 6th thing we did is use that disc sander to actually sand the backs and the top edge to get rid of the bandsaw marks. And that was it, done. I'll show you all the little steps as we go along. All right, everybody, welcome to the multi-router. What we're gonna do now is this is gonna go up and down. And this is gonna go side to side. I'm gonna use these air actuated clamps to lock everything in place, just like this. And I'm gonna try to do this without blocking the camera view. I'm gonna try to hug my camera and take this shot at the same time. So if it comes out funny, it's just the way it is. And here we go. All right, and there it is. We have both sides done. Now the next thing we're gonna do is go to the bandsaw. So we have our shape piece here. Let's just pretend that it's all sanded up and ready to go. So we have the blade set, so it's exactly a little past where our piece is gonna be cut. But when we cut it on the chop saw, the only thing we're left with is like a line like that. We have to remember that this is the face that we're using for the smaller ones. So we have to lay it flat like this. And this is all we're gonna do. We're just gonna put it on the bandsaw, let the blade come up to speed, and we're just gonna push it in until it stops. Flip it over and do the same thing. And that's it. And the reason we're using the bandsaw is because it's a square cut, and the table saw, which would leave a cleaner cut, will waste more of the material. Square cut's what we're looking for. We're gonna take it over to the chop saw and then chop these to size, and then we're gonna take them over to the disc sander and disc the backs. Okay, we're here at the chop saw. And you can see we have a zero clearance fence right here. I just double stick tape that right down to the old auxiliary fence here. We have a piece of maple in there for a stop block that's set at the distance that we needed for that. And now we're going to chop these to size and keep them flat like that. That way they don't buckle into each other. Okay, now we're going to make a cut. Flip it over and do the other side right here. And then we have 4. And you can see sometimes they'll explode, so that's why we make more than we need. I don't know if you can see how rough that back is. And now we're going to take them to the disc sander, and we're going to disc sand the back off and the top. Top doesn't need it as much, but it kind of helps. Okay, so you can see our little tiny egg here has the bandsaw marks on the back, right? The only way I can figure out how to get rid of that is to disc sand them. And I use the same spot on the disc sander over and over again. All right, we're starting with a new clean slate. So what we're going to try to do is get rid of all of that bandsaw chatter. I'm going to hold it in place. I'm actually pushing pretty hard up against this disc with my 2 fingers. I'm going to flip the switch on over here with this hand and off, just like that. And you can see it's gone. And I'm going to take it, flip it over, same spot, same exact thing. Now this whole piece is square. I'll do that on another one. Okay, you can see the back, nasty. Same spot, push, on, off. Doesn't take much. And I know I'm gonna wear out my switch. Flip it over. Okay, try to do that the exact same way every single time. And you can either count or just do it by sound, you know. And there we go. And there they are together. You put them back to back also. See, they're nice and close. So you really can't tell them apart. You put them together, they look the same, pretty damn similar. And then we only got to make about, 65 of these or 70, and then 55 or 60 of the other ones. Here's the bigger ones that I did. See, they're similar, they look alike. Flip them up on end. Yep. So they come out pretty good. As long as you're consistent with your switching on and off, it'll work. And it's safer to do on and off with the switch than it is to let this run and then try to stick that in there. Because if you do that while this is going at full RPMs, you're going to cut the tips of your fingers off faster than you can blink an eye. So don't do that. And there we go. A pile of dental eggs ready to be hatched. All right. All right, everybody. Well, there you go. Always remember to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself every single day. Try to be better. Try to not do things the same way that everybody else does them. Be your own person and do it your own way. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Oh, that's not done that way. Well, how do you know unless you try, right? Always try. Woodworking's a puzzle. It's a giant puzzle. Whether you're going to learn how to cut dovetails by hand, whether you want to make a curved molding, an arched door, it doesn't matter what it is. Don't let people tell you you can't do something. Just try to figure it out for yourself. Sleep on it. Make sure you have a plan. Think about all the tools you have. Think about the safest way to do them. Whether you need to sand something beforehand, before you cut it apart, or whatever it is. This whole video isn't really about making these little silly eggs. It's about thinking outside the box and doing things that you've never done before and figuring them out. And I just walked you through a little process of how I went and figured out how to make these damn things as fast and easy as possible and safe. And that's what I came up with. When you say to yourself, how the hell am I going to make something like that? Just go out and challenge yourself to figure it out. Use what you have. And if you don't have the tools you need to build what you want, call your friends and ask them if they can help you out. So challenge yourself every day to be a better woodworker, learn how to do things differently, think outside the box, and enjoy it. Enjoy the mistakes, because without those mistakes, you're never going to learn. It's just what happens. It's just the magic of woodworking. You have to screw things up to learn. Look at me. I'm the biggest screw up I know, but at least I can figure out how to make an egg, right? Just remember, there's always a way to figure out how to do something, even if you hire somebody to do it for you. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. You all be safe, be well, and I'll see you next time right here on Woodworking with Mr. Kevin. Bye. All right, we're going to close the barn doors just like this.
Subscribe now.
I wrote everything down as I was thunking it. These things always seem better in my head than they do in real life. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's try that again. A little shorter, faster, smaller, quicker, saver, flicker, flacker. Here. Oh, that was exciting. I'm not very good at these things here, so you're just gonna have to hold on.